'Tis the season for sledding. Now, I'm not talking about grabbing your trash can lid, greasing it up, finding the nearest hill, and sliding down at speeds that only Han Solo would be able to understand. I'm talking about sledding your Nintendo Switch in one of these, either the Retroflag or the Nitro Deck. So today, let's talk about these two. So first, let's talk about what these have in common. They're both third party, through and through, not designed by Nintendo or licensed products, so take it for what it is. You have to enable wired Pro Controller settings because these are treated as wired controllers. It will disable your NFC support or any sort of amiibo support, and Bob's your uncle, not Bob Wolf. But if you're watching this, Bob, hey, actually, if Bob, you watch this, could you comment below? That'd be great. Now, a couple more of the similarities I think that are worth mentioning are this and the Retroflag are incapable of being docked. Now, that's not just physically because this obviously won't fit in a dock. These can't do any sort of video pass-through. I've tried with the Covert Dock 1, 2, and the Covert Dock Mini by Genki, which are the only ones I trust, and they don't do it. I've tried different cables, I've tried different HDMI, I've tried different USB-Cs, I've tried everything I could to try to get pass through. Now, hardware-wise, these both have Hall effect thumbsticks, which is great for anti-drift, if that's what they're claiming. And they have programmable, swappable buttons. You can do that through the turbo button, which is located on the back of this one, and on the Retroflag, it's on the front. Now, before I give you the differences, they have rumble, they have gyro support, they both have power pass-through, which I've mentioned. And now we get into the differences. And also, I mean, there's a real honest question here. Real honest question. How portable are they really? I mean, this guy comes with a case. This doesn't at all. The beefiness that is this right here, I don't find it to be overwhelmingly portable. But before we get into that, much better. Let's talk about the differences of these two. The first thing I want to say, which is the biggest difference that I noticed, was ergonomics. Now, the Nitro Deck itself claimed to have ergonomics, the whole extra beefy sides, but the button placement caused a weird thumb thing to happen, so that when you're actually playing, your thumbs were super arched and it was uncomfortable. I know it seems like such a weird nitpicky thing, but when it comes to a device that is claimed to create a better gaming situation, you would expect that ergonomics would be the primary focus of this rather than the aesthetics, as well as this limited release, special colors and companies collab thing. It's obviously what they're more going for because, let's be honest, this thing came at the end of its life cycle. Now, talking more about this, the Retroflag, and how it does its thing. I wanna make sure I don't get any coffee. Let's just wipe down my pants. That's good. And this guy, and some of the differences that I actually prefer on this are, well, the back has felt. And when it came to the Nitro Deck, in sliding the Nintendo Switch into the Nitro Deck itself, it would lock into place, which the Retroflag does not have a locking mechanism similar to the Nitro Deck. It just has this push down, and there's actually no base here either. So if you want to push on either side, you kind of get a little bit of wiggle room, but this felt back does give me a little bit of peace of mind when I'm sliding my Switch in and out of this, because this doesn't have video pass through at all. So you are going to have to remove your Switch if you want to play anything on a TV. And me personally, as someone who not only streams it, but also someone who does use the TV to have that gaming experience, the switchability is #1 most important thing. And that's why neither of these really are my daily drivers. Now, another thing that you're gonna notice on both of these, the differences is you're going to have full pull analog triggers on the Nitro Deck, which you would think is great. This is awesome, but there's no need for that. The Nintendo Switch itself, the Joy-Cons themselves don't even support analog triggers. So to have less of that on here, you have these nice big lips that kind of resemble that of like a PlayStation controller. I do like it, but they're not analog, and that's good. Now, another big thing that you're gonna notice on the back, no, and I repeat, no back buttons. Now, for me, that doesn't matter. I don't think back buttons are all that important. I don't assign back buttons. They're not something I use, so that doesn't bother me one bit when it comes to these two devices. Now, for you, if you're someone who does use back buttons, then that might be a no-go for you. But honestly, 4 back buttons for Nintendo Switch, I mean, who is using that? If you're that person, let me know in the comments below what games you're playing with 4 back buttons. All right, if you know, you know. I've used fancy cups before, but guys, we're gonna be using this. And so the question comes down to, are these things even worth it? Should you even purchase a Nitro Deck or a Retroflag? And I have coffee stains on me. And I'm gonna say for me, it's a no-go in most cases. Now, the Retroflag itself is only $44, $44.99, so 45 bucks. Whereas the Nitro Deck is 60. I can't get behind this thing. This thing is just too bulky. And when it comes to having a sled in and of itself, I'm not the biggest fan of the idea. I think that the function is okay, and this guy right here, the Retroflag, does the best job of blending the idea of having external replaceable Joy-Cons in a sled form. It does throw the very, very popular GameCube aesthetic on everything, and I personally am kind of tired of seeing the GameCube aesthetic thrown everywhere. I get it, it's very popular, but personally, I'm okay with having something like Super Nintendo or Game Boy for that matter. Now, a couple things to be wary of when getting something like the Retroflag is this D-pad isn't the best D-pad. I would say that the Nitro Deck actually has a better feeling D-pad. This one's kind of mushy. Maybe I got a bad model, but honestly, it doesn't feel like it's any direction that's mushy. And the OLED on this was clearly designed for the standard Nintendo Switch. Now, I'm not sure if this released before the OLED did, but I will say that the snugness of getting the OLED in here, it's a tight fit. There's a little bit of pressure. This doesn't have a locking mechanism, which I mentioned before, so if you want to smack this around, the Switch will slide out, so that's something to be careful of, and there's no technical case for this. You're going to have to figure out how to protect your Switch if you take it on the go. I don't find these particularly portable to me. This might be a household situation, maybe sitting on the couch, but I'm not gonna wanna go out to a coffee shop to my buddy's house and bring this behemoth. Personally, I am a huge fan of the Satisfy Zen Grip Ronins. Wasn't expecting that to be a thing, but hey, Satisfy, you did a good job with those, and I'm a sucker for design, so the Nintendo Switch by itself is just a beautiful piece of hardware. So when it comes to these two, my final conclusion on both of them is that I would not use either of them as my daily driver, but if I had to spend a week nonstop and I was given no other option, I wouldn't even look anywhere else but the Retroflag. It gets the win from me. It just doesn't get the recommendation because these ways of playing just aren't for this daddy right here. This daddy is a naked daddy. That's not good. That's not good. All right. Happy gaming. I'm keeping that in.